I'm Jim from Come Play With Us, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing Lightning Train. This is the latest game from Dire Wolf and Paul Dennen. Um, this is a train-themed game. It's not, it's not your traditional train game, let's just say that. I'm not really a train game fan per se. I have played some Railways of the World. I used to own that game and play that one quite a bit, and I thought it was all right. I think I rated that like a 7 or a 7.5. And, I played a little bit of Steam, that kind of thing, but no, I've never played any of the 18X or anything, any of those kind of games. And I'm not really a big, huge fan of the train game genre, but this was coming from Paul Dennen, who, made Clank and Dune Imperium. So I was quite interested to see what this would be like because, those are two of my favorite games. So I didn't want to ignore this game just because it was train themed. And it seemed to, be promising something a little different take on that theme with the bag building, which I do quite enjoy bag building games. So I thought I'd give this one a try. As usual, I'll not be doing a full overview of this game. I've done a playthrough on my channel, and I'll link to that in the show notes below. So let's start by talking about the components. So the components for this one are pretty much, if you've gotten any of the games from Dire Wolf, either Clank or Dune Imperium, then, the component quality will be familiar to you. It's on par with the other games that they make. It is quite colorful, as you can see, and the components are sturdy and quite well made. I do kind of wish, a dual layer player board would be nice. I think that should be kind of standard by now. It's not a dual layer player board, but that's fine. It's still functional. But you can kind of like knock stuff around a bit, but it's not really a huge issue. You get a nice bag like with the game. The bags are quite nice. Your hands fit in them quite easily, so they're good sturdy cloth material. So these are well done, and the iconography is really good, easy to learn. I have no problems with that. I do kind of like how functionally everything works really well. It's easy to set up. And, you can identify stuff quite easily on the board. So I think all in all, the quality of the components is quite nice. The art is, it's fine. And it's a train game. There's not really much you can do with the art here. So, it's not crazy good art, but it's not bad art either. It's just, kind of okay. The card quality is pretty good. I always sleeve my cards no matter what, but the card quality in here is quite good. So I don't think you need to sleeve these cards if you don't want to. I like to sleeve my cards, so I do, but I don't think that's kind of a necessary thing for this game. Yeah, and then everything, like I said, everything is quite functional. The rule book is very well done. I've not had it explains the game really well. Has component list. Goes through the phases and everything. There isn't a ton of rules in this game. I didn't find I needed much clarification. There is no index, which, I am kind of picky about not being an index, so that is a little bit annoying, but it is a pretty short rule book. There's not a ton of rules in here, so it's not really hard to find the rules in here. And because the game is fairly simple, once you get it down, the only thing you really need to look at is the reference guide on the back, which they have a quite nice reference guide on the back with all the symbols and stuff. So that is fine. They also give you there's one for each player. Awesome. Card with the turn order and, kind of the game end scoring. I actually had the players at my table comment on this and they're like, why doesn't every game give you one of these cards that explains the game? I know, why not? But they do, so awesome. Kudos for them for actually supplying that. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I want to say about the component quality. So let's talk a bit about the mechanics now. So like I said, this is a bag building game, and but it has a couple twists on that kind of genre. So the things that it does per normal, like other bag building games, is you draw your chits out, you put them in your starting area kind of thing here, and then you kind of program what actions you want to do and then do your actions. So that's the standard stuff, similar to Orleans or any other kind of bag building game. The twist that he's added to this game is you have these little areas that have plus sections. So these ones can only put chits in there that have this little plus symbol in the top left corner. They go in here. And basically when you're drawing your chits from the bag, you draw until this first non-plus symbol column is full, and then you have to stop. But if you pull these extra plus ones out, then they go in this extra slot, and so that allows you to draw extra chips. And you can even, there's a little section down here, so these start like this. You can upgrade this little section here to give you 2 more of the plus slots so you could draw more bags. I really like this. Is really interesting because it's another little thing, a little wrinkle that you got to look at when you're buying your chits. Because if the chit has a plus sign on the top left corner, that makes it a little bit more valuable because you can play it as an extra chit and not just part of the 5 if you happen to draw it in the right order. So that's cool. I really like that addition to the whole bag building thing. The other thing that's interesting about here, I like how the market works. The different chits, the better chits, like they've got this little symbols on the bottom here, and they match up to this market row. And so when you're pulling replacement chits, they go in specific spots depending on the type of chit you pull. And then if that area is full, they'll push them down and make them cheaper. So that's pretty cool. Works really well. Easy to refill the market, and yeah, I think that's kind of really neat. The other neat thing about the bag building here is your bag will get clogged with the trains. So the trains are kind of dual use, these train shits that go in your bag. You use them to program your actions in here, but they also get used to build your tracks. So there's this little neat dichotomy between needing them to program spaces, but also needing them to lay out your tracks, because if you lay out too much track, then you don't have your chips to do your programming. So that's really interesting decisions on how to build your bag and what you're doing. The other thing is the whole lightning train concept. So you have chips that have lightning train symbols on them. You have chips that have little hats on them, and if you draw 2 with a hat on them, then you get lightning train. If you upgrade this thing, then anytime you see this symbol, you get a lightning train. And so you can build this little like lightning train factory. Well, what do the lightning trains do? Well, lightning trains let you draw more of these guys, the trains, but they go directly into this lightning train area. So this is another wrinkle on the bag building, is that if you kind of build your bag to generate lightning trains, then you can generate all the trains you need during your kind of bag pull and get the extra things out. The downside to that is if you get a really big lightning chain engine going, is these things will clog up your bag if you don't spend them. So if you're generating lightning trains, you got to make sure that you can lay them down as track quickly. Otherwise, you'll stall out your bag. So that's another really cool addition to the kind of like the bag building in this game. The other interesting mechanic is to build out on the board here. You're building stations and you're building track, but to build out there you need a contract. So you get these chits that have the colored backgrounds that show you these are contracts, and you need to draw one of those to be able to build in those areas. If you don't have the contract for that area, you can't build there. Now there is an action that you can take by spending 2 trains that lets you secure a contract anywhere on the board. So you're never really fully locked out if you don't happen to draw a contract. As long as you have enough trains, you can still build on the board. So, but there's a nice little strategy there about what contracts to get and put in your bag, and it's just another little decision point that you have when you're building your bag. Really cool. Otherwise, this is kind of like a traditional train game where you're building routes and you're doing deliveries and you're getting points. It's the same thing where you get points for deliveries going over your track. You get extra points if the deliveries to one of your stations that you put out on the board. You build your routes starting at the starting stations, or from any station you build or any track you built previously. Stations you can build don't have to be built connected to your network. As long as you have a contract, you can build a station anywhere, but the tracks have to be built from track you've already built or a station you built. So all those kind of rules are kind of similar to like a Railways of the World type or Steam type railway game. So that will be familiar to anybody who's familiar with these type of games. But there is one slight twist, I believe. In normal train games, you kind of pick the resource or the good that you want to ship, and then you ship it over the lines to the station, to an open station, and then generate the points that way. This flips that around, which I find quite interesting, and actually screwed up some of the players at the table that are like more trained players than me, and it was kind of messing them up. In this game, you pick a station that you want to do a delivery to, and then you have to deliver the closest good that's available that station is demanding. And the other cool thing is these when you deliver those. So this is a cow, but if I had the right good here, when you deliver the good, you flip it over and cover it up. So that's a neat little component thing. How that works, it works quite nice. On top of all that, there's this little mini expansion that they include in the game. That's with these things, and I like the little mini expansion too. We played with this last game, and what it basically does is it blocks off these tracks. They call them private companies. So it'll block one track section off permanently that nobody can build there the whole game, and then I'll put these things out on a bunch of tracks on the board, and that means you can't build on those tracks. But instead, you can just pay if it's connected to your network, you can pay the money cost on it, and then you get it built for free. Well, not built for free, but you're paying to build it instead of having to need the tracks. And then the tracks that you build it with come out of your supply. So that's interesting because it can help you if you don't generate a bunch of lightning trains, or you didn't draw enough trains to build a big section of track or a section of track that turn. You can buy the track instead. The other thing is normally you can only build one track section in a turn. This allows you to build an extra section because it doesn't count towards that. So that's another cool little thing. I think I'll play with it forever now. We didn't play with it the first few games we played, but I think once we played it, I like it in there. It's an easy addition. It does not many rules, so I don't see why I wouldn't play with that. It gives you more variety and kind of more ways to strategize about things, so I don't see why you wouldn't put that in there. On top of those things, you'll get there's also the goal cards that you'll start with, so everybody gets different, and the goals are quite neat in this game. That you get the usual things. You'll get some goals that'll say build this section of track, kind of like Ticket to Ride kind of thing. You got to finish a section from one city to another, all and you'll get some bonus points. You'll get delivering certain types of goods, or building stations in certain kind of areas, or having a certain number of big stations or small stations, all those kind of things. There's a lot of variety in the different goals you can get in the game, and I like that because it makes it more. It's not like you have to focus on the typical train thing of building tracks and taking advantage of deliveries. I mean, that's a big part of the game. But for instance, the last game we played, my two goals were to buy high value chips for my bag and build big train sections. And I actually won the game, and I wasn't concentrating on deliveries or anything at all. I was just concentrating on those two goals, and it worked quite well. I like that gives you other ways to win the game. Okay, so I'll talk about with the mechanics of this game. So what don't I like about this game? I think there's not much I can say really that I don't like about this game. It can, on your first few plays, because this is so different, it can feel a little lucky on especially until you get used to how the contracts work, because you'll get some starting contracts in the game, but they're one-time use. So when you use them as a contract, they get burnt. And so until you're familiar with how the game works, you could get into this in your first couple of games. You could get into a situation where you burnt all your contracts, and you can't really, and you're not generating enough trains to use your special spot, and you're having a hard time building stuff up on the board. So I think for beginning players, your first couple games, that might feel a little lucky. It might be a little lucky when your turn comes around. Maybe there's no contracts available for you to buy, that kind of thing. So how things come out in the market can affect you, because maybe you're feeling like you can't. It can be a bit tactical that way, where you kind of got to see what the market's giving you, kind of what you have to play with, and kind of tactically work with that instead of having being a fully strategic game. The other thing that can be kind of tough is there is a bit of luck again it's a bag builder, so in the draw pulling, like I said, like I had a really good engine going last game, right? And I actually triggered the end of the game, and I needed to get. I got a really bad draw on the last turn of the game, and I couldn't do anything. So that that's another thing that can kind of hit you. The 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 yeah, one of the main things I don't like about this game is that this, and I found the same thing with Dune Imperium in before they released the expansions, is that there's not a lot of ways to thin your chips, right? So there's a couple of abilities. So when you put your stations out, you'll get some bonuses, and one of them is to trash one of your chips. And there's one other thing that lets you trash a chip, and you might get a card or something that lets you trash a chip. But there's not a lot of ways to trash chips, so it's hard to get rid of your kind of early chips besides the ones that burn. But you also have these like $1 ones that clog up. There's a bunch, I think 3 or 4 of those in your starting stuff, and they're kind of hard to get rid of. So there's only a couple of ways to trash things. So I think that's another thing. If they ever did an expansion for this, which I hope this will catch on and do an expansion, is that they add a couple more ways to do some more trashing, so you can thin your things. Because yeah, that a couple times that happened. Where you get a really bad draw and you can't do anything now, and it's not your fault because you can't trash the things. Now, if you get a bad turn because you drew a lot of trains and the trains are clogging up, that's on you, because that's totally, you should have full control over the trains in your bag. But it just because getting rid of some of those early chips are kind of hard. So that's pretty much all things that I don't like about this game. What do I like about this game? This game is a really good take on the train genre. Like I said, I'm not a huge train game fan, so I'm not sure if I recommend this to any 18X fans, because this is quite short. I think we got a game in, 3-player game in last night. It was hour and a half, I think, to play the full game, and we played it before, but we hadn't played it in about a month, and so we needed a bit of a rules refresh and to refresh our minds on the kind of on the strategies and stuff like that. But it's still hour and a half took to play. Setup's not too bad, so that's a really good thing about this game, is that compared to something like Railways of the World, which this probably feels most closest to, then that game tended to be about 3 or 4 hours, depending on what kind of map. Could even be like, I think the original map for that was like, if you had a full player count, could be like 5 hour long game. So this one's much shorter. So I think that has a lot going for it. Is if you like the train theme, or even if you like train games, or maybe you're looking for a quicker train game, something that's a little lighter, this might interest you. So that's really awesome. And I mean, I love the bag building in this. I love bag builders. I think this is a really good bag builder. I love the little twist on the bag building here with the pluses and managing that. I love the lightning train thing, and the whole thing about one game I went really heavy on the lightning trains, and I kind of messed myself up because I was generating trains faster than I could get them out on the board. And I don't even think I bought contracts that game. I was just using my secure contract. But the thing is, you can generally only lay one track a turn. Now there is another action on here that lets you. There's tunnels on here, so this use explosive action lets you build on the tunnel spaces, but it also, or you could use it to build a second set of tracks instead of a turn. So there are ways to kind of like lay tracks down fast, but yeah, you can get into trouble if you're not watching yourself. And so that I found that really interesting and really fun. That there's so many, there's kind of different strategies. Like last game, I went into a money strategy because I had to buy those big chips. I just went for money, and I was generating tons of money every round, and so that was cool, especially with this mini expansion here where you could buy the tracks. So maybe I wasn't so good at building the tracks, but I could buy them, that kind of thing, because I was focused on the money. There are chips that generate points, straight up points, and you can just get those chips and generate just points without even having to build stuff. So lots of different paths to victory in this game, lots of different strategies. It's not just a pure, I got to build the best route and do the best deliveries. No. I mean, you can't ignore that altogether. I mean, but it doesn't have to be it's not the sole strategy of this game. You can do other things. So that's where I say it's more of a train theme than a typical train game. There are also these, besides the gold cards, there are also these one-time use cards, and there's a lot of cool things in here. You can get these. I do wish you could get more of these. There's as you're going up on the score track, this beginning of the score track lets you. It's got a couple of things. It lets you put these upgrade chips in your bag when you get past certain spots, and it lets you draw more of these cards. I wish there's more opportunities to draw some more of the green cards. There's a couple places where you get bonuses, like when you're putting out your stations, you get a bonus to play the green cards, but because they're pretty cool. The other interesting thing about this game is when you build the stations, there's two types of stations. There's these small ones and big ones. There's only, on the big stations, there's only 2 resource demand spots, and on the little ones, there's only 1. So there is not, a lot of opportunity to do deliveries on these, on the board. So that's kind of interesting where, there's quite a bit of supply of goods, but there's less demand for the goods. I think in the typical train games, you've got more places you can deliver the stuff and less goods that you produce, right? It's more about starving the resources. They flip the script here where the demand is the hard thing to find. The goods seem to be more plentiful because they come out every round. Yeah, so that I think I'm gonna finish by saying this. What's my overall thoughts on this game? I think this game kind of flew under the radar last year. It was. I did notice it was on a couple of top 10 lists, but I think for the most part nobody was talking about this game. Not a lot of people watched my playthrough. There's not a lot of excitement about this game, and I don't know why. It's from the pedigree of this company with this designer. He's had 2 major hits. The fact that there's not more interest about this game really surprised me because I think this is a fantastic game. It's quick to play. It's really fun. You know what? If you love bag building, like this is a really good bag builder, and the train theme's really nice. And like I said, it's quick and snappy, and it's a lot of fun to play. I'm giving this one an 8. I think it's quite good, and I hope more people will start playing this and realize that this this game kind of flew under the radar. I'd say it's probably the most underrated game of last year that I tried. So yeah, I really recommend this one. Don't stay away from it just because it has a train theme. I have a feeling that might be what's keeping people away from this game. They think it's they might not be interested in train games, but I think this one's more like probably leans more to the Ticket to Ride side than the 18X side of things, like much more closer. As usual, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.